Hi, my name is Brad. I'm here to talk to you about the Ford Asset Distance Education Training Module 4 Mentors. Mentors are an important part of the Ford Asset training design, and have been since its inception around 1987. So Ford has recognized the need to have the senior master technician working with the younger incoming new Ford technician. So in this module will describe how a mentor and a student using communication skills and techniques by assessment will be able to measure those skills by assessment. So a lot of what a mentor does is actually report to us about how a student is doing, which would affect a student grade. And also, you'll be able to demonstrate your knowledge of various parts of this by completing some readings, discussion board assignments, some quizzes, and various learning activities. And they're all listed here, what we're going to do. So this on this homepage is some reading, a few little quizzes, and some assignments. And keep in mind that some of the assignments are just for you to look over. Those would be the assignments you actually practice looking at them. For now, you could do one practice survey and you'll kind of get what the surveys do, how they function. So you don't need to spend a whole lot of time doing this. And the philosophy of this is that we're teaching students in a college education training program. There is a certification piece to this, which is like first year MLR, that is not necessarily an academic being, general education courses as well as Ford training courses. So there'll be students in different parts of this training program depending on where they are in their education plan. But the future goals of New Ford technology or New Ford Tech is to upgrade the technical competency and the professional level incoming Ford and Lincoln dealership service technicians, and to train the program students to diagnose and analytically and service and maintain Ford products using the correct procedures. And then to provide content for students to be able to graduate, and I like this, advance a position after additional experience and demonstrate understanding of new systems and components as they are introduced. And this training program actually is able to track that progression over the 5-year, 6-year period, as long as we need to actually measure that progression. So this future goal, Ford goal, this is kind of forecasting, advanced education to be able to service new products, we can measure that using this learning management system. So we have two programs. The student may be in a traditional program where they're face-to-face attending our college, and doing work experience that's geographically close to Queen Mecca College. And they may be attending distance education classes where they're taking their assessments online and having a relationship with another college closer to the dealership where they live. So it's possible that there could be a combination of those classes depending on what the student and dealership needs are. So example of how it works is if a student completes Ford web-based training, college course work experience coursework, which is required, that's where the mentor comes in, and Ford Asset or corporate test out, then that equals Ford certification. Or a whole bunch of NATEF tasks being things that people can do, equal like a competency. So if you complete all of the electrical competencies and you're able to perform those well and link them together, all the tasks, and they link together to become more competent, then you're competent in electrical. And you'd be certified in electrical to be able to perform electrical repairs. And we want to make sure that they are evaluated and performed at 100% accuracy. I know that in the past, we've talked about, 80% accuracy, but we're really trying to raise the bar with this particular program so that we don't have people that don't understand the have the knowledge, skills, and ability to do what warranty requirements are. Okay, so the idea here is that we're going to just describe your roles and the roles of a mentor and a mentee or a student, who is an old traditional way of teaching, and oftentimes it becomes a very close relationship between the mentor and the mentee, so that they have the same goals, and the amount of influence that the lead technician has on a new trainee is much greater often than the teacher, because they're spending more time with them. They're actually passing on their wisdom. They're giving them like inside information about like how to use tools, what tools to buy. We've even seen where the mentor and mentee relationship goes on beyond the 2-year academic training, and there's an agreement where they continue on because they need to continue to gain some knowledge and skills after the program graduation. So that we see in where the mentor is involved in like purchasing of tools and all kinds of creative things. So that's what we're going to use to talk about best practices, where there's actually a benefit to the mentor and to the mentee. And that's how a good business deal works, how a good relationship works. And we have this for you to read about the mentoring defined by the New York Academy of Sciences. A professor from Yale wrote an article about mentoring and gave some tips for mentoring a student. And then we added some of our own ideas about, demonstrating a process and then performing the same process together, and allowing a student to perform the process with your observation, and then allow them to perform it independently. And then after performing independently, they're ready for an assessment, which would be like the fifth step. So to be able to do something is the most important thing, and to be able to do it where competency is defined as somebody that can actually do something and make a living wage or wage. It's the definition of competency as opposed to an objective. Objective would be something really small, one little thing that you do, maybe a big goal, but competency says, hey, is somebody willing to pay you to do this? And that's how our program is grounded in that. And then we're using like a couple of different learning theories that we don't have to get into, but one thing to keep in mind is that we do want the interaction between the classroom and the dealership, live interaction. So connecting people between the dealership and the classroom, and also increasing the amount of people that are involved in it. So making it easier for people to talk to each other and communicate and become more connected to the student learning outcomes, to what we're trying to do. So that's like all learning theory. There's one story that we want to talk about, and that is not all of us are built the same, have the same capability of processing. And in a dealership, if the dealership is able to identify the jobs that are available that are not necessarily technical as a senior master, like some of the students we're going to train are not going to be capable of reaching the objectives of becoming a senior master technician. They just don't have the capability. But that doesn't mean that they don't have a place within the dealership. An example of that is a student we trained that had learning disabilities and some other disabilities. And he was able to eventually get a job as a driver. And then from the driver position, now works on the counter, on the technician side of the counter at a dealership. Well, that's kind of where Ford is able to give us more time with some students, and they understand this as part of the mission and vision of the community college system, to be a family of resources for the community, and that we need to recognize people from the standpoint of where they are and what they need, what their needs are. So that's something to keep in mind as a mentor. So what we do is with connectivism, with this modality, is leverage a lot of people. And we can see that example of the immediate use of Zoom through this pandemic. We can also see this in the design that we have, where we have a learning management system that is capable of doing a lot of things. So we can have announcements and evaluations. We can have longevity of tracking resources, and we can have a management of information and the resources. And then we can also have collaboration, right? That all is part of Canvas, right? And then in a learning management system, it's called a management system. We can have teachers, and we can have students, and we can have industry mentors, which would be you, and managers, and then also college people that we wouldn't necessarily think are part of our team, that we really are do something different things than instructors do, that have different skill sets, and college administrators, all able to be in one place where we can actually work together and track and share files and have way better communication than we have in the past without these resources. So the solution for us, we found that through research that the students do much better after they've had work experience. So the power of Forward Asset is work experience. So real work experience, applying the foundational knowledge they receive from the college to the actuals. That's what we want from our program. We want students to gain competency, and the way they do that is through assessments. And the assessments, can be multifaceted, so multiple measures. So it may be coursework, like artifacts would be transcripts that were taken courses were taken at another college, a digital portfolio of their competencies of work, artifacts of their work, mentor evaluations, which is where you come in, the mentor comes in. And so all these things are observable demonstrations of their work, and they lead to proof of the ability for them to do something. So a mentor may have more than one student that they're mentoring, students then, after they're at a certain point, they have to go in and have some demonstration of assessment that needs to take place to ensure that they are competent. And so we have examples here of remote examinations. So I'm not going to have, we're not going to take a quiz right now, an overview quiz, but we can look at where a mentor is assigned to actually create an assignment where you release your academic photo, video, and work consent, so that some of the stuff that you're doing we can share with other people. We also have to keep in mind that students have a right to privacy. There's an article that you can read about students' right, or FERPA, it's a Family Education Protection Act. They've all signed a release, but if they don't sign the release then of some of the rights of work, then they can't participate. So that's not this is like a collaborative thing where there's a lot more openness than we've had. Maybe the student may have to share their grades with other people, and share their work with other people. And that's an example of that. So through this, we're using the NATEF standard competence tasks for proof of their abilities. So the tasks are the NATEF tasks. And also, when we have communication, we can do it through live lecturing, conference calls, discussions, but keep in mind you'll have a discussion board for mentors. So that discussion board is designed so that you can talk to other people amongst yourselves. And that's a good resource for you to use. And then you have your discussion board, which is the dealership team. And that dealership team will be a closed group. So it's going to be just your dealership and an instructor. And so it's going to be a much smaller group. You're not talking to everybody. You know, there could be some private things that occur there. And then you have your large discussion, which is called the advisory team. And the advisory team is a lot of people. And so that's where you have to be kind of careful about what you say. Obviously, all the time you have to be careful what we say, but just realize that that's going to a lot of people. So that way we can ask for things that we need. We can talk about best practices. We can, you know, find out what's wrong with something to make it an improvement, and so on. So there's all these different ways we have to communicate throughout the program. And one of the big things that we're going to lean on the mentor is, you know, tracking efficiency. And so in other words, you know, there should be, for one thing, the mentor should get something out of it. So there should always be an incentive. So the only way that we can prove efficiency, how much does this cost, is for us to track hours, track independently, independent jobs versus assisted work, those types of ways of making sure that we're keeping track of what's going on. So we also have evaluation of students' capabilities. So in the area that they're working, for example, it's electrical, can a student do the electrical repairs that are written down, that we know what they're going to be asked to do? Can they do them? And so forth, and so on with electronics and climate control and brakes and on and on and on. So we gave examples of 3 different surveys that a mentor would fill out, and can they do those multiple times? So as often as needed, we can use these surveys to track a student's ability to actually do the things they're supposed to do, right? And these would lead to the ability to be able to work eventually by themselves. But also their employment skills. You know, they show up to work on time, and what hours did they work, and how many hours were independent, how many were assisted, did they have any comebacks, what would they need to do to improve, like what are we recommending, what do we need to do here? And then the final evaluation would be, you know, like, okay, this person's like getting ready to, and that actually can, you know, they're near graduation, or they're near a section, what do they need to do? Can they work independently? Where are they at on a Likert scale of their capabilities of being able to work and continue in their training? So we do performance evaluations that are live evaluations, recorded evaluations, and so you can just kind of review that about how we track students and also how we perform the assessments. At some point, the student will be actually, in some cases, taking a test that's at the dealership, taking place at the dealership. If that's the case, then we need to have a car that's designated beforehand so that we know what we're testing, what car we're using to test the student. And so you need to be aware of that. And finally, at the very end of this module, you can read the whole distance education application. You can read the policies and procedures manual from Ford Motor Company. And also there's a role play assignment where you're going to be a mentor. And the idea of this is that you're going to be collaborating with some other key people that are joining the group. And so you're going to be, this is like the audience, the student is the subject, but the audience is, there may be, you know, you may be talking to a college instructor or an administrator or all these different roles, and responding back to student needs, but you're actually responding back to, with a group of people surrounding a student for the student needs. So it doesn't mean because a student asks a question that you have to answer the question. You may push the student to somebody else who would have the answer, or may ask the question, you know, the question that they ask you may lead you to ask another question. So that is kind of how the whole program is going to work, based on us sharing information with other people that are in the program that are there to support us. And we'd like you to go ahead and read the materials and questions, reply to it, and write, paste your answer into the reply, and then respond at least 3 or more posts in your group, and then check back frequently for new responses from other people. And there's some of the students with their questions they're going to ask you. And this is just so you kind of get more familiar with the program. It doesn't mean you have to have all of the answers, but it's a starting point. We appreciate mentors. This whole program is designed around your skills and abilities. I can go on about success that I've witnessed that mentors achieve through properly managing this program, but it really takes an educated approach for the service manager on down the line, because we have to have buy-in from all of the key stakeholders for this to work, and for that to be efficient, and for it to be effective, and for there to be an incentive for the mentor. And we hopefully are recognizing that now, and can achieve some really great things soon. So looking forward to working with you more, and thank you.